Hi everyone, this is a short explanation video of task 3 of the file handling task set 1, which is based on Cambridge International Examinations 9608, November 2018, paper 23, question 5. A program collects data about the performance of a car at regular time intervals. A text file, carstatus.txt, stores the data. The format of each line of this text file is as follows. Some information about time with a comma, some information about the amount of fuel used with a comma, and the distance traveled. Each line stores some of that information. The program contains the following functions: get time, get fuel, and get distance. So it returns a string, get time returns a string, get fuel returns a string, and get distance returns a string. The function save status will. So this is another function, and it does these things. It obtains the time, the fuel used, and the distance using function calls. So this function here, save status, calls these functions. It checks that the fuel level is greater than 0. If the fuel level is 0, the function will keep calling the function getFuel until a valid fuel level is obtained. So this function here is just going to keep calling this function until it gets a level that's greater than 0. Then we're going to form the text string and write it to the file. Form the text string? What text string? Write it to the file? What file? So the text string, of course, is this thing here, and the file, of course, is this thing here. So I'm going to explain the solution to save status. And just to help us figure out what's going on, I'm also going to write some stub modules for these three functions. So first of all, let's just write some dummy stub modules. The first one is def get time. It's a string, so I'm just going to say get time return. This is just a dummy module to help me test this function. This is the key function. So this is just dummy stuff. So I'm going to return a string which says it's 12 o'clock. That's get time. The time is always 12 o'clock. Def get fuel. Maybe we could be a little bit more creative with this one. Let's say we're going to say fuel equals random dot rand int any number between 0 and 10. Okay, so this is going to give us some zeros. And there's something about zeros here if the fuel level is 0. So let's just do that for get fuel. Now remember guys, these are functions, so don't forget to return fuel, right? Don't forget your return statements. These are functions. Function, return. Okay, get distance. So let's just create a dummy thing, a string. Oh, I tell you what, get fuel returns a string representing the amount of fuel used. Oh, so we're going to get a random integer here, but actually it needs to be converted to a string. So let's just do that. We are returning a string, so that should do that. Now then, def get distance. Get distance returns a string representing the distance traveled. I tell you what, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing here. But this time, it's not going to be fuel, it's going to be distance. And it is a string, so we are going to convert it to be a string in Python. That's how to do it. Convert a number to a string. And return distance. So I've created 3 dummy functions. They don't really work as expected maybe, but they return the right kind of value, which is strings. So that's fine. That'll help me test this function, which I'm about to design, save status. So now let's define that. Save status. So this function, save status, obtains the time, the fuel used, and the distance data using appropriate function calls. So let's do that. Let's call the getTime function and save the returned value in a variable. I'm going to call it time. So time equals get time. I'm then going to get the fuel. Fuel equals get fuel. And distance equals get distance. Now we have to be careful here. Check the fuel level. Check that the fuel level is greater than 0. If the fuel level is 0, then the function will keep calling get fuel until a valid fuel level is obtained. So we've managed to get a value for the fuel. There it is. Now we just need to validate it. So while fuel is the same as 0, we're just going to keep asking. Fuel equals get fuel. Right, so this is a little validation routine which is just going to keep calling this function until it gets something which is greater than 0. So that should work. Form the text string and write it to the file. Well, this is interesting because this is I've messed up, haven't I? This is a string. Let's just put a comment in here. Fuel is a string. Now I know that fuel is a string because that's what getFuel returns. getFuel returns a string. So this thing here is a string. So we can't do that, can we? Oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Could we do this? Ah, wait a minute. This is returning a string. And the string could be string 0, not int 0. That'll work. That'll work. We've converted it. That is a string because this function returns a string. So that's a string. Is that string the same as that string? If it is, we call again. So that should work. Hopefully you understand what the heck I'm talking about. Okay, let's continue now to the next part of the save status functions functionality. Form the text string and write it to the file and return true. So I'm going to say my string is equal to, what was the string? Time. So it's going to be time. And in Python we can concatenate with the plus symbol a comma, because there's the comma, don't forget the comma, and concatenated with the amount of fuel used, which was fuel. That is a string, remember. We don't need to change it to be a string. It is a string. Concatenated with a comma, and concatenated finally with distance. Let's just change that to distance. Brilliant. So that's the string that we're now going to write it to the file and return true. Are we writing or are we appending? A program collects data about the performance of a car at regular time intervals. A text file stores the data. Format, comma, program. Doesn't tell us if we're appending. Write to the file. Okay, I'm just gonna write it to the file. I might do it in append mode, just to be good, okay? So f equals open something in append mode. And the thing that I'm opening is carstatus.txt. So that's what I'm opening. And now we're going to use that variable there. This is my variable connecting me to the file. So this variable will allow me to do things like this. So I'm writing this string into the file. And then, of course, I need to close the file. And finally, I need to return true. So that is a full solution to task 3.